This is George Dion of the Rock is George podcast, and this is a KNAC.com exclusive interview with frontwoman Lori S. of the stoner rock act Acid King. If I knew absolutely nothing about Acid King, how would you describe the band's music to me?
People categorize it in the stoner rock doom category. I don't know. It fell into there by the hands of others, not by mine. But that's what people categorize it in. Heavy, slow, trippy, and I guess what the fans call it, stoner doom.
On March 24th, your latest album is set for release, Beyond Vision. It's out through Blues Funeral Recordings. It's been a little while since we heard an Acid King record. The last one was 2015, Middle of Nowhere, Center of Everywhere. But this didn't actually start off as an Acid King album, did it?
No, it didn't. It was, we came back from a 2019 tour, the 20th anniversary of Bussy Woods. And at that time, the two players in that band were hired, to play, the previously recorded songs in these tours. They hadn't written or recorded any songs with the band, and the bass player left at that point, and then the drummer and I, carried on. But at that point, then the pandemic hit. It was kind of like so. Blues Funeral had reached out to me, I want to say years before that, might have even been probably 2018, asking me if I would be interested in participating in their Post-Wax 2 subscription series. And he basically said I could do whatever I wanted. I could write 45 minutes of whatever I wanted. And I was like, that sounds awesome. But in Acid King time, as you can see by the history, I don't write a lot of records. And I just didn't have the capacity. I was going on a tour. I couldn't really promise. I didn't say no, but I really couldn't promise anything. And then when this situation occurred, I thought, well, here's a great thing to do right now. You know what I mean? Like, I got this offer from this guy. He said I could do whatever I wanted, and now it seems like a perfect time to do that. And so I had some ideas, and I recruited Jason Landrian from Black Cobra to see if he'd be interested, because we had talked in the past about, maybe doing something together, kind of like in that passing, like, hey, we should like do something together one day, like going out to lunch, and then you never ever go with that person. Same thing with Jason. I think we probably said this 10 years ago. And I said, I have this opportunity, to do this. Would you be interested? He's like, yeah. So we just started to do it. And basically, it was never meant to be a new Acid King record. It was just supposed to be some whatever experimental, conceptual record that we didn't even know what we were going to do for sure. I'd never written with anyone, before like this, and neither did he. And we were going into territory that we were not familiar with in either of our bands. But as time went on and we started writing, it was pretty clear that the songs are really coming out, just in a different way than we anticipated, and not in some weird avant-garde experimental, here's your 45 minutes of whatever. And I came to terms with, yes, this is a new Acid King record. I would constantly say, this is not the new Acid King record. Nope, not the new Acid King record. But then I finally had to come to terms with, yes, it really is.
Well, there's certainly some more layers in this album that haven't been in past Acid King albums. I'd say, listening back to your back catalog, a lot more guitar centric in the front, but now you got sort of more keyboard, sort of an atmospheric horror soundtracky kind of vibe to this album.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. That's true. And I was very influenced by the Apollo 11 soundtrack by Matt Morton. I saw that movie years ago. I think it came out in 2019. I can't remember. It was a documentary about Apollo 11. And he did all of his, the whole soundtrack was an analog synth. And I thought it was so cool, and I bought it. And so when I was thinking about the concept for this record, I was channeling Matt Morton and his analog synth. And I thought, I really love this record. I'd really love to do something like that. And the last record that I wrote, Middle of Nowhere, Center of Everywhere, had a little bit of that. It's like dabbling a little bit in that, but not too much. And so I thought, well, this was the chance to take the leap into, to doing that. So it comes from more of that kind of a vibe rather than the horror film. But I could totally see that, for sure. As I was writing it and thinking about 2001 Space Odyssey, and one of the songs is called 90 Seconds. It's about, you only have 90 seconds to live if you're in space without any oxygen, right? And there's that scene with Frank where, Hal cuts him loose into space, right? So that's pretty much like, yeah, the theme and the vibe of the record. It was a journey, it was supposed to be a journey, a trip from, departure to arrival, and in between. But the journey is up to the people. I'm not telling you what kind of journey it is. Whatever journey you go on is your own.
And initially, this was almost an all instrumental album, and you kind of look back on it and said, "Nah, there's got to be at least some lyrical content here."
Well, the record label guy said that. Oh. he was like, "We're not going to have anything with vocals." And originally, that wasn't. Yeah, it was going to be an all instrumental. But then I started writing some songs, and I thought, this song really needs vocals. It's just not an instrumental. And so that's how it happened. It was kind of like, oh, this song really needs some vocals. And then it would go into, oh, well, this is for the new Acid King record, not for this record, kind of a thing. We're going to put this over into this pile. And I was like, who are you kidding, Laura? You write a record every 10 years. It's going in this record. So yeah, that ended up to be 3 songs that had vocals on it.
And even though you have this broken up into songs, I feel like it's one continuous track as I was listening to it. So that kind of goes in place with the journey that you're speaking of.
Yeah, that was my whole concept of not having any beginning or end, just having these like synthesizer transitions in between each song. So it's really, to me, the best played, digitally with headphones or something, or laying on your, couch with the lights off. It's like, to get the whole experience of the record, in my opinion, it's best to listen to it from beginning to end instead of hand picking the songs, if you want the full, experience of it all.
You did have to kind of pick a song out of it for the video. You combined Destination Psych and Beyond Vision. Who put the concept of the video together?
That was Dallin McNabola. I can send you the spelling of his name. He is a friend of Jason Landrian's, and he reached out. He really wanted to do an Acid King video, and Acid King has never had a professional video ever in the entire career of the band. Just never did one. Not a huge video person. I'm never really comfortable acting, playing the guitar with no microphones, or so. I gave in. I'm like, all right, let's do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going all in on this one. And so he was so into it that it made me want to do it, because, he really wanted to do it. So it was his idea. We talked about it together. He presented ideas, but it was, based on that song and just whatever random things about it. But yeah, that's he did it, him. And Jason Landry actually did some motion graphics, contributed to it as well. So, yeah, I'm really happy with the way it came out. I think it definitely captures the vibe of the song pretty well.
Well, since everything went so good, do you see yourself doing other music videos in the future?
Potentially. Potentially. I'm not going to say no, but it would have to be, I didn't catch the video bug or anything like that. I'm not like, oh my God, every song is going to be a video now. But if somebody approached me with the same enthusiasm as he did, with really wanting to do something, I would definitely, be into it.
Producing the album is Billy Anderson, and he's kind of your go-to guy when it comes to Acid King albums. What does he bring to the table that you think adds to the final output?
Well, I haven't recorded. There's only one record that I recorded it with another engineer for part of it, and Billy ended up finishing it. I've recorded every record with him. I think there's just a certain kind of comfort level with him. He knows me so well, and he knows, just what I like. And he's not only just an engineer; he really contributes to the process. If there's like a part where like transitions or sound effects or backward cymbal or let's throw whatever kind of things that you think about creatively but you don't know how to do them. You're like, wouldn't it be cool to, I don't know, do something here? And then Billy like, oh yeah, and then he will think of that something. So he really contributes creatively. He's not just a knob turner. And for me, especially on this record, we didn't have a lot of time, we didn't have a lot of money, and when you have a combination of those two things, you need to have someone that knows the drill, that knows that you can work with quickly. It wasn't really the record to be like experimenting with someone you haven't worked with before, burning the hours with that. And I'm not saying that, of course, there's so many other engineers out there that are great. It's just for me a comfort level, and I love Billy. It's always fun to record with him, and I think he did a great job. And I think it's one of the best that he's done so far with Acid King.
You kind of made him seek out this antiquated music equipment to put this album together. You were looking for analog 2-inch tapes to do this.
I did this. Yeah, it was my fault. I can't seem to move on. George, I'm having a problem here. I can't move on. So I just, for some reason, I can't seem to move on from 2-inch tape. I love the way it sounds, the warmth that it gives. So yes, the studio we recorded in, Sharkbite, always had a 2-inch tape deck, and the tape's expensive now, really expensive. It's like over $500 for a reel. And so Billy had he had some old reels at his house. He's like, I'll bring them because you can reuse them. And so, anyways, I contacted the studio just to see if they had any extra tape in case the tape Billy brought wasn't any good. Ends up they didn't have the deck anymore. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have the deck? That's why I'm recording there, because you have a 2-inch tape. Anyway, I guess he'd given it to some assistant engineer. He wanted to get rid of it. It was, it's like a 1970s car. You keep putting money into it, you keep repairing it. People aren't using it anymore. Only people like me and certain people, right? And I'm like, well, you've got to get it back. We have to use it. So he did. He got it. He just, was able to get it back for the recording session. And I was very happy. Of course, it was a pain in the what for him. I had to be calibrated. And then, of course, guess what happens next? Billy comes in and the tape's no good. Shocking news. The tape's no good. We can't use it. But I had hindsight. I already thought about this. So a friend of mine works for the Dead and Company. That's not too far from me. They're in Marin. And so I reached out to him and said, do you have any, I actually asked him, where could I get 2-inch tape first? And he's like, oh, I think we have some here. At the studio, so when Billy came in and the tape didn't work, I called him up like, oh my God, I need the tape and I need it now, so he lent me some 2-inch tape from the Dead and Company's studio, and I met him and I picked it up, and then I, bought him a tape to, make up for the one I borrowed. So that's my 2-inch tape deck story. And yeah, it's gone. I won't be back. The guy got rid of his deck. He had a really old Trident deck. It was we were the last band to record on it. Pink Floyd recorded parts of the wall on there, and Steely Dan recorded on it. And again, it was like that 1970s car. It was really hard for him to find parts for it. And as cool as it was to own it and have it and the history of it, he had to move on into the digital world. And I guess I'm going to have to too, eventually.
Well, in In keeping with that older equipment and the warmth that those 2-inch tapes give, you have some special edition vinyl versions of the new album, and vinyl's making its comeback. I didn't think it was going to come back, and it's here. Obviously, you must be a fan of the medium itself.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Nobody thought vinyl was going to make a comeback like it is. It's crazy, right? I mean, all the plants closed. There's only these small independent plants that are open for bands like ours. And all of a sudden, Bruce Springsteen and whatever record day, and everybody's like putting out vinyl again. And I don't know if you saw that, Jack White video, where everybody was going to his little, studio and I think it's in Memphis, where he has his own record plant. Major labels are reaching out to him. And it took over a year for our record to get done because of that, because the plants are so backed up because there isn't that many. And he was like, basically like, major labels, reopen your plants or open your own damn plants. It's like now bands like ours who've always put out vinyl are getting pushed to the side for, these major label bands because vinyl's back, and who knows how long for them, if this is going to have a long shelf life or not. But I think it always will be for us because there's just people that are into music or into vinyl and collection and colored vinyl and all the artwork that comes with it. So yeah, I still have my vinyl from when I was a kid, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon.
I think the major labels are going to do what they did with CDs and price themselves out of the vinyl market. I already see the prices jacking up for a 30-year-old album that I've owned 4 or 5 times already, and they want $50 for the vinyl version. They're out of their mind.
Yeah, totally. And that's another unfortunate thing that's happening is like vinyl's becoming like a vanity thing. Like it's like becoming a luxury item. It's not like something a lot of people can't afford it. People can't just afford to spend $25 on records, when they can get it digitally for $10 or whatever. So it is becoming a specialty thing that is really, especially with shipping. You're spending over $30 to $35 just to get a record. So it's coming elitist, and that's unfortunate. It should be for everybody, not just for the people with money that want to collect it. So I'm with you on
Absolutely.
that.
You have some cool vinyls though for this new album. I saw the subscription vinyl with the sort of the artwork manifested into the actual vinyl, and then you have a teal one, and then there's another one I think you sold out of. So you're doing well on that front.
Yeah, they did. I mean, the subscription versions are pretty cool. They're a diorama, so there's actually YouTube instructions on how to set it up. But yeah, it's really cool. It opens up into a triangle, and then there's like these like plastic pieces with different pieces of artwork, and when you slide them in to the slots, you can look through it and you can see. I mean, every band has a different version, but ours is like, like a staircase where you're looking in, and it's really cool. Yeah, for those that purchased it, you definitely got a lot. You got, the diorama, and then if you buy the box set, it all comes together like a game board, so you can play a game. Yeah, comes with chips and the whole thing. It's really cool. They really put a lot of effort and a lot of detail into this. And Peter Bergstrand, the art director, Martin Donders, the illustrator, did just such a great job, of it all.
And Blues Funeral Recordings, how did you get hooked up with them initially?
Like I mentioned earlier on in our conversation, he reached out to me in 2018, just asking if I'd be interested in doing this. And that's basically, he reached out to me, and and then, what is it? A couple of years later, he didn't give up. He kept at me, and, same thing with him. He wanted to put this out a lot earlier. And then, the pandemic put a, stop to that. And of course, all of the fact that we just discussed with the vinyl plants having such a backup. It took him years to get this that way, behind in the game. But it's happening now, and it's really cool. I have some of the bands he already put out already, some of their box sets, and it's definitely a special. So I feel very lucky. I haven't gotten mine yet, so I haven't actually seen the real thing. I've only seen other people posting it on social media.
Are you heading out on the road to promote the album? You got a date in California, then you're going to be headed mainly to Europe for the festivals. Obviously, the
Yeah.
festivals are where it's at.
Yeah, right now, record release show here in town, San Francisco, at the Great American Music Hall on June 3rd. There'll probably be some the Southern California shows perhaps in July, and then that we haven't booked yet, but we're working on that. And then, yeah, going to Europe the entire month of August for festivals, which will be really fun. Going to Portugal. We are going to Portugal, but that's not what I meant to say. We are going to Sao Paulo, Brazil, after that to play. There's like a 3-day festival they have. And that's right when we get back around September 8th through the 10th. So I've never been there before, so that'll be exciting. And yeah, and then whatever else comes our way, that's all we have. I don't plan on a big US tour. I'll do some flyouts if this, if it comes up, if so, a chance comes up or whatever. But I'm not renting a van and driving across the US anymore. No, it's just not in the cards for me anymore.
Understandable. Now, when you go and do these festivals, I mean, you've been in the music industry for a while, but do you get a little starstruck? Because there's some really big acts that play some of these festivals that you're on the bill with.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I was just actually joking around. I was just telling the bass player that's currently playing with me, he's never been to Europe before. It's will be his first tour. And I was talking about Hellfest, which is in Clisson, France. And if you know about it, it's huge. It's one of the best festivals ever. It's almost like playing in wine country. It's like, you're going through Côtes du Rhône. You're like, it's Côtes du Rhône. It's the wine, Côtes du Rhône. And then all of a sudden it's like, welcome to hell. And there's like a bunch of people dressed in black. I mean, it's the weirdest thing in the whole world. But then you have these two main stages where it's like Slayer, Kiss, ZZ Top, Deep Purple, like, back and forth. And then all the breakout stages where it's like death metal, thrash metal, punk rock, doom metal, it's overwhelming. So then you have a backstage area like the band bar, and there you're hanging out, like obviously like Aerosmith and the higher up bands, have their own little areas, where you don't get to hang out with them, but still you're just like, oh my God, there's like, so yeah, you do get starstruck for sure. And I was on the airplane with Blue Oyster Cult and Napalm Death, which I had to laugh about because the airport's so small, Clisson, it's like 4 hours south of Paris. So if you're flying in, anybody is flying into that airport. So you could be on the airplane with anybody. I thought, oh, I'm sitting next to Blue Oyster Cult right now. Hi, this will never happen again. Yeah, it's definitely fun. I met Girl School, and I've been a Girl School fan forever since Kelly Johnson, even though she's no longer on planet Earth, but still, they were like a big influence to me back on the day. So they played and they were in the Commoners band backstage area. Maybe they just wanted to hang out with us. I don't know. But I got to meet, the guitar player, and it was really fun.
You mentioned all these delays that led to this album being released. Have you been working on new music during the delays?
No, we've been working on how to play this record live because this record was a very, it's funny because as a kid, I remember going to concerts and thinking, these songs don't sound like the record, and not really understand. This is even before I played the guitar, not even really understanding, like, oh, the studio, the live version. Like, sometimes you can't even play songs you record live. They're so studioed out. You'd need like a whole bunch of engineers to produce it, or pre-recorded music. You can see why people have pre-recorded music. Things just cannot be done live, not everything. So we're, in the process of, figuring out, working on how do we play this now? you know.
Those are all the questions I have for you today, Lori. Your new album by Acid King is coming out March 24th. Beyond Vision through Blues Funeral Recordings. Fantastic album. It was my first exposure to the band, and now I'm hooked and going back and checking out your old material.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate it so much. And, that's the hopes, right? It doesn't matter if your band's been around for 30 years, it can be discovered. Just like, what was that? The Waiting for Sugarman or Finding the Sugarman, the guy from, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sixto or whatever. Huge in South Africa. Guy lived in Detroit or something. Nobody ever knew. All of a sudden, star.
Right. Well,
Ah.
that's going to happen for Acid King. That's my prediction.
Well, yeah, that's okay if it doesn't. I'm happy that I've even gotten to this point in my career. So just happy to still be playing and creating music.
Absolutely. And thanks again for taking the time to come on the podcast. And I wish you the best of luck with everything.
Thank you.